directly across the street was a squarish tower of red bricks that housed Rudyard School for Boys, the town's only other school since Widowsbury School had fallen victim to a sinkhole for the 6th time. Outside it stood Stephen Weller, the son of the Rudyard School cook. Today was his 9th birthday and he was spending it by himself, doodling on the many flyers that were tacked to the wall. Know your surroundings. Report anything different to the council at once, they said. He saw these flyers everywhere, and it seemed like fresh ones were being pasted over the old ones every day. They usually included Mayor Templeton's official seal beside a photo of the mayor looking very stern. Stephen drew glasses on him and grinned, pleased with his work. Then he heard a sound like someone dragging their feet, or perhaps a body.
Zombies!
He thought with a thrill. He had always wanted to meet a zombie, but it was only a woman coming up the road, her boots caked in mud. She carried a large black leather suitcase upon which she had pasted pictures of flowers. It looked as if it weighed more than she did. Stephen had never seen her before. Most Widowsburians feared newcomers, but Stephen never understood this. New people were exciting. Not quite as exciting as zombies, but Stephen's father said those had all been dealt with a long time ago. He supposed he'd never see one now.
Hello,
said Stephen, but the clearly exhausted woman did not appear to hear him. He watched her for a while as she trudged wearily toward the enormous white cathedral of the girls' school. Then he shrugged and went back to drawing on flyers. Remember the storm, said this one. Known is good, new is bad. He was drawing a mustache on it when he heard another commotion coming from the opposite end of the road. Stephen turned around and saw a man in a straw hat and a pink and white striped apron approaching, dragging behind him a large wooden cart. The man looked young, certainly older than any of the Rudyard boys, but definitely younger than Stephen's father. His cart was full of crates, jars, various tools, stakes, and something that looked like an oversized clock.
Are you new in town too?
Stephen asked the man. He hadn't meant to be rude, but 2 newcomers in one day. It was unheard of. The man stopped and held up his hands.
I don't want any trouble,
he explained. It sounded as if he'd already gotten his share of it.
Then, what are you doing in Widowsbury?
Asked Stephen.
It seemed like as good a place as any,
said the man uncertainly. Stephen, remembering his manners, walked over and extended a mittened hand.
Sorry, I'm Stephen Weller. What's your name?
He said. The man smiled and shook Stephen's hand with both of his.
Zothout's the name, Lyle Zothout, purveyor of sweet treats and delicious delights. And gosh, I'm glad to hear a friendly voice. Yours is the first I've heard since I got in the midnight train,
he said cheerfully. Stephen gaped.
The midnight? Really?
He gasped, for the midnight train was a thing of legend in Widowsbury. It first passed through about 6 years ago and had done so every night since. No one ever saw the train, but anyone awake at that hour could hear its clanging and its chugging and that lost lonely whistle. His dad said it was all nonsense, of course, and that people would see it if they only went outside, but tales of the midnight still held Stephen's imagination fast. Lyle Zothout didn't appear to know about those tales. He just blinked in confusion and then got right to his point.
Say I'm setting up my stand today, and I sure could use an extra pair of hands. Do you know anyone who'd be willing to help? I can't pay except candy right now, but it's the best candy there is, that's my guarantee,
he said. Stephen thought for a moment. The only person he could possibly ask would be his own father. But as skeptical as the senior Weller was about Widowsbury's superstitions, even he didn't care for new folk. He probably wouldn't like Stephen hanging around one either, but he was busy with the day's lunch preparations, and that was never a good time to bother him.
I guess I've got some time,
said Stephen. He was relieved when Mr. Zothout didn't laugh at him. Instead, the latter asked,
How are you with a hammer?
I was practically born holding a hammer,
Stephen said proudly.
Fantastic,
Mr. Zothout exclaimed.
Pleased to make your acquaintance. By the way, you can call me Mr. Z. What sort of candy do you like, Mr. Weller?
Oh,
Stephen began fidgeting with his jacket buttons.
I don't really like candy that much. It makes my stomach hurt. I'd much rather have peanut butter any old day, but that's okay. You don't have to pay me anything.
Mr. Zothout gawked at Stephen.
You don't like candy?
I'm sorry,
Stephen stuttered.
I'm sure it's very good.
What kind of kid doesn't like candy?
Mr. Zothout murmured to himself. Then he shrugged and chuckled.
Never mind about that. I'm just glad to have your help. Say, maybe I'll come up with a new line of peanut butter treats. I'll call them Steffens.
Stefan laughed. He liked this newcomer, and it didn't matter if he got paid for his work or not. He was just pleased as punch to be of use to someone other than his father for once.